فاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي ذكره شرف للذاكرين وشكره فوز للشاكرين وطاعته نجاة للمطيعين. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وحبيب إله العالمين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا الرسول الأمجد المحمود الأحمد رحمة للعالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى تمام عدة المرسلين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين وحجته على الخلائق أجمعين، سيدنا ومولانا وإمام زماننا الحجة المنتظر المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم قرآنه المجيد وقوله الحق: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. إن الذين يعذون الله ورسوله لعنهم الله في الدنيا والآخرة وأعد لهم عذابا مهينا. آمنا بالله وصدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعظم الله أجورنا بمصابنا أبي عبد الله الحسين. May Allah accept all of our azadari and all of our remembrance in these last 12 days. And inshallah, may He allow this azadari to change us in character and allow us to move forward and allow us to remember Imam al-Hussein throughout the year as opposed to only in these 12 days. Yes, the 12 days have finished, but that doesn't mean that the remembrance of Imam al-Hussein should finish. As Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam famously says, surely in the heart of a believer there is a flame or a heat for the killing of Imam al-Hussein that will never subside. We often forget that word never, because never means that it is always there 365 days a year. Too often in our community we find that that flame is there for about 12 days of Muharram, the days of Ashura Zainabiyya, and throughout the year it disappears. When Rasulullah said this, he wanted you to remember Imam al-Hussein on a daily basis. So inshallah, these remembrances should allow us to remember Imam al-Hussein every day throughout the year, so that his example can be something that guides us throughout the year. And so that we can realize and recognize that Rasulullah, when he said, Inna Hussein misbahul huda wa safinatun najah, we can understand how he becomes safinatun najah within our lives, and how we can board this ark of salvation. Today, inshallah, I've been asked to talk about Ziyarat Ashura. I really stick to one topic, and therefore in order to explain Ziyarat Ashura, I'm going to look at the concept of Salam. Because whenever I say Ziyarat, or whenever you hear the word Ziyarat, the first thing you know you're going to do is say Salam upon the Prophet or Salam upon the Ahlul Bayt. But we know that we use Salam in many different situations within our lives. For example, when we greet each other, we say Assalamu alaikum. And at the end of our Salah, we say Salam. And in Ziyarat, we say Salam. Is the salam in these three situations all the same, or is there a slight difference? When we say the salam in ziyarat, or when you say the salam at the end of salah, are they the same or are they slightly different? Why did Allah get us to say salam at the end of our salah? You see, these are basic things that we often forget or we overlook. Because the thing is, often when we go into religion and we start to become more religious and we start to say that, I want to look more into religion, we get confused as where to look. But the thing is, the most deepest things that you can look at are those things that are right before your eyes. That's Salah. Rasulullah calls it the mi'raj of a mu'min. And surely in that Salah lies your success, which is why in Adhan you're told to say, Hayya alal falah, hasten to success. However, how many of us have mastered the concentration in prayer? How many of us have understood Salah such that we can go on this mi'raj? Furthermore, we're also told in Surah 29 verse 45, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. Surely Salah keeps you away from evil and indecency. If Salah does keep you away from evil and indecency, that means there must be an aspect of every part of Salah, including that Salam, that should keep you away from evil and indecency. But does it do that to you? Do you ever ponder on this Salam and why you do it? When you recite this Salam, who are you even reciting Salam to? Have you understood it? Or is it just something that you've been reciting year upon year? It's important for us to look into these things, because these things are things that transform us within our lives. And especially Ziyarat Ashura, which we recite on the day of Ashura, and which you all know the significance about. Something which, according to our hadith, is hadith al-Qudsi. It was revealed by Allah through Angel Jibreel to Rasulullah, but it was not the words of the Quran. Such a magnificent word. To understand it, we have to understand the philosophy of Salam, what it means in different situations, and how it should change our lives. To further this and to drive this point home, if you look at Shaykh Muhammad Khalfan's book, The Sacred Effusion, when he talks about Ziyarat Ashura, he says that Ziyarat Ashura, within it, it contains a manual for a revolution for an individual, such that when he recited, he should begin this internal revolution such that he can purify his soul. The last time you recited Ziyarat Ashura, did you ponder on it? Did it change you in any way? Or was it just an empty ritual that you done on another day of the year? Indeed, Ziyarat Ashura, we find within our narrations, is something that's mustahab for every day of the year. As we often say, a famous saying that we've created, every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala. As I said at the start of my lecture, we're meant to remember Imam al-Hussein throughout the year. Ziyarat Ashura is something that's recommended throughout the year. But how many of us has taken the time to look at it and understand it and try to apply some of its teachings within our lives? And therefore today what I'm going to do is I'm going to look into Salam in different situations, and I'm going to look into Ziyarat Ashura very briefly, so that inshallah we can benefit from it and we can use this within our daily lives, and inshallah we can keep up the remembrance of Imam al-Hussein within our daily lives. Before I go any further, please recite the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. At the start of Surah Bani Israel, the first verse talks about Isra or Mi'raj. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa. It talks about the Mi'raj. In the tafsir of Mir Ahmad Ali, you find he narrates a bit about the Mi'raj. He says that when Rasulullah went up to the heavens, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent out a voice to say, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Rasulullah, in reply, after hearing this salam, he said, Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. And then he looked and he saw the angels around him. So he said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Within Salah today we do a similar thing. We say, Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. But this last salam, it's a very general salam. Who are we aiming it at? According to our ahadith, it's not aimed at the angels. In fact, it's aimed at creation in totality. Why do we say salam to creation in totality? This is a very interesting concept. Now I want you to direct you to one hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. He says that when you enter your own household, it is mustahab to say salam. Because when you say salam into your own household, Allah, He yunazzilul barakah, He sends barakah down to that household, and the angels come and accompany you within that household. Even in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah 24 verse 61 says, whenever you enter your own household, إِذَا دَخَلْتُمْ بُيُوتًا فَسَلِّمُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ تَحِيَّةً مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Then say salam to yourselves, because this allows barakah to come down to you, and this allows for the angels to come and accompany you. This means that when you enter a household, you should say salam. Ayatollah Khimani beautifully says in his book Adab al-Salat, Salah is the mi'raj of a mu'min. In Salah, you're meant to go on a journey towards the heavens. At the end of this journey, you're coming back towards the earth. As you are about to re-enter the earth, you should say salam to your surroundings, because you're coming back from a journey. He says the problem with us is we never go on this journey. So in the same way, our salah is merely an utterance. When we say salam, it's merely an utterance. We've never left this world, so we're never coming back to this world. The whole of this salam was just an utterance, another word that comes out of our mouth. That's the first reason why we say salam when we finish our salah. Secondly, we have a hadith from Imam al-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. He beautifully talks about the salam, and he mentions many things. But first and foremost, he mentions as-salam is a name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means peace. As-salam is a name of Allah that He entrusted upon His creation so that they could use it in their character, and so that they could become an embodiment of peace in this creation. Think about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to say Assalamu alaikum to the whole of creation. Imam al-Sadiq is saying Allah has entrusted this name towards you so that you can become an embodiment of peace towards creation. So that when you go about in the land, you start to spread peace to people. And he says, let your guardians not be annoyed by you because of your bad behavior. Know your friends, know your enemies. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted you to act as an embodiment of peace for mankind. I remember after the 9/11 tragedy, 9/11, what happened? In London, we started to have many protests about Islam because of the Islamophobia that started coming out. And whenever you saw a banner, it would always say, Islam means peace, Islam means peace, Islam means peace. However, how many of us actually applied that peace within our lives, such that when people looked at us, they could say, yes, Muslims are people of peace. What Imam al-Sadiq says is amazing. He says, let not your guardians, nor your friends, nor your enemies see anything against peace from you, because you're supposed to be an embodiment of peace who brings peace towards creation. How many times have we gone and created a fight or started fitna, or, we've not been an embodiment of peace to our creation? Rasulullah, when he said smiling is a form of charity, he wanted you to go about in the earth and be somebody who makes people smile. He wanted you to be somebody who goes about in the earth and makes people happy, who becomes an embodiment of peace. Because by doing this, you automatically become a silent preacher of Islam. What do our Ahlul Bayt say? Be for us silent preachers. Preach through your actions. When we say salam at the end of prayer, it's meant to change our character so that we can become more like the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as-salam. And we can spread this salam upon the earth, such that we can become embodiments of peace. And how many times do you find our imams are the embodiment of peace? Think about it. Imam al-Sadiq says, let not your friend know your enemy be at the end of you being bad to them. Let them even see that you're an embodiment of peace. How many times on Karbala do you see Imam al-Hussein offering them forgiveness? How many times on Karbala do we see that his own people want to attack first? And he says, no, we never attack first. We do as much as we can for peace. If they attack, then we only retaliate, because that was in the best interest of peace. We find Amir al-Mu'mineen, the night before he gets struck, he's waking his killer up for Fajr. After he is struck and they bring his killer to him chained up, he says, loosen it so that he's not in too much discomfort. Offer him a glass of water. Imagine, these imams were the embodiment of peace, not just for their friends, but for their enemies. Many a times our friends are not safe from us. And Rasulullah increases this concept as well. He says, make sure people are safe not just from your behavior, but from your tongue. Not just your abuse, but how many people have a filthy tongue that people don't like to listen to? Rasulullah wanted you to increase your manners. What does he say? إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ I have been sent to perfect your manners. Islam was a religion that came to change your akhlaq, your manners upon creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to have the best of character so that we could be the embodiment of peace for creation. Therefore, when we recite Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh at the end of Salah, this is meant to change our character such that we can be an embodiment of peace for creation. The salam before it, we say what? Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. Peace be upon us and upon all of the ibadillahi salihin. This is extremely interesting because now we're singling out all of those brothers in faith we have in this world. And if you look within our narrations, you find that our brothers in faith have a higher right upon us than those equals in humanity. Those people who are equal to you in humanity, they have a lot of respect. But your brothers in faith have an extra respect that are deserved. And within this we find that we do extra things for our brother in faith. For example, simply we find that we greet each other with the greeting, Assalamu alaikum. Now, what is the philosophy of this greeting of Assalamu alaikum? Why do we greet each other with this salam? Why was it that Rasulullah got us to greet us with this salam? First and foremost, similar to the first reason, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam has a narration where he says that the name of Allah is As-Salam, therefore spread the name of Salam with each other. Secondly, you find that Rasulullah and our A'immah got us to say Salam to each other because they wanted to increase the ties of love and brotherhood between each other. They wanted this Ummah to be strong in unity. Because when you say Salam to each other, it creates a bond of affection between you. And specifically we find Imam al-Baqir saying when two brothers meet, they should shake hands. Because when you shake hands, sins fall off when you're shaking those hands. Just like when you shake a tree, leaves fall off. And in fact, we find that this salam was something that could change your character as well. For example, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he said, the people who are closest to me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those who initiate the greeting of salam. He says that when two people greet each other, there are 70 portions of thawab given. 69 to the one who initiated it, 1 to the one who replied. The importance of this salam can be seen from the fact that when we say salam, you know it is wajib for you to reply to that salam. So that's the amount of respect they wanted us to have within each other. And furthermore, Rasulullah says that this kind of salam, it allows us to take away arrogance from us. Because when you're able to say salam first, it shows that you don't have any arrogance or any pride within you. You know, there are some people, if somebody walks past them and doesn't say salam, they say, I don't want to talk to that person. He doesn't say salam to me. Why should I talk to him? Rasulullah said, no, you should be the initiator of the greeting. In fact, he has a beautiful ahadith where he says, our believers are those who initiate the greetings. The one who expects the greeting is the one who is a hypocrite. Because it's only the hypocrite that wants people to acknowledge him. You should not want to be acknowledged. You should be willing to acknowledge others first. You should be initiating the greeting among you. Therefore, we find the importance of this salam was stressed. And now if I can take you to Ziyarat Ashura, and one thing we say, we can see that Wilayah has a social aspect to it, which includes this subject of brotherhood. Within Ziyarat Ashura, we say twice, Inni silmun liman salamakum, wa harbun liman harabakum, wa waliyun liman walakum. You say, I am at peace with whoever is at peace with you. And I am at war with whoever is at war with you. And we'll come on to that. I am a friend of anyone who is a friend to you. I am a wali to anyone who is a friend to you. Within this we find Shaykh al-Shamali, for example, has a work about the social dimensions of Wilayah. He says if we were to understand this, we'd understand that what we're being told here in Ziyarat Ashura is that anyone who is at peace with Aba Abdullah, anyone who mourns for Aba Abdullah, you should be at peace with that person. How many times do we find in our own community that brothers within the Shia world are fighting each other? Fighting with each other over small issues. Yes, we can debate each other over issues such as maraja'iyya. There may be small differences within practices of azadari. There may be small differences in small things here and there. We can debate them. Who said debating goes wrong? Go back to the times of Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen. He would tell his companions within the mosque to have mubahatha, to discuss with each other and then come to the imam to ask for the answer. He would never say just come straight to me. He would encourage discussion among each other. And in the time of ghaibah, what better than to discuss things that we are unsure upon? That's one of the things about the ghaibah, the time of ghaibah. It's one of the signs. One of the parts of ghaibah is the fact that we're not going to have the answer to every question because the imam of our time is not here. Therefore, naturally, we're going to have to debate and discuss. However, this should not lead to fragmenting of the ummah. Unity of the ummah, especially the Shia brothers, need to be strong. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam famously says that the ummah in their affection for each other should be like one body. If one part hurts, the whole of the Muslim body hurts. When you go and you fight with another Muslim brother and you cause hurt towards him, technically you should be hurting back. If you cause pain towards him and he's in pain, if he's technically part of the Muslim ummah, Rasulullah is saying you should be causing pain, that pain should come towards you. How is it then that you cause pain to another part of your own body? How? You see, this unity within the ummah was so important. And if you ever see a community thrive, know that it was because of the unity of that community. And indeed, Imam al-Mahdi probably looks upon us right now thinking, where is the unity going to come? Go to our ahadith and see how the unity is like at the time of Imam al-Mahdi. You find Imam al-Baqir, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. He says that at the time of Imam al-Mahdi, the unity will be such that a brother can go into the pocket of his brother in faith and take what he needs, and the brother in faith won't mind. Now, of course, I'm not going to tell you to go to another brother right now, take something from his pocket and say, look, there's a hadith that tells me you should allow me to do this. But what it means is that the understanding between brothers in faith at that time will be so strong that they could go in each other's pockets and it would not matter because they would have such a trust and a bond between them. That's why in our Light of Knowledge, one of our mission statements is that we wanted the community to become more united. Because this brotherhood is something that we have, but it's not at the strong level, the level it needs to be at for Imam al-Mahdi. Think about it. Would you be able to go into your brother's pocket to take something from them? Would you allow somebody to come to your pocket to take something from you without asking? It's difficult. There needs to be trust. There needs to be that bond. And we find that the social dimensions of this wilayah is what we find in Ziyarat Ashura when we say, Inni silmun liman salamakum. And you say, Waliyun liman walakum. I am a wali for anyone who is a friend to you. This word wali is actually interesting as well. Because wali does not only mean a friend. It means a guardian. SubhanAllah. You know when you say Assalamu alaikum to a person, one interpretation is that you're giving them you're initiating a greeting of peace. So you're asking Allah, you're doing a dua to Allah to give peace to this individual, to envelop him with peace. When you make a dua, you know you're meant to work to fulfill that dua as well. For example, if you ask Allah for a job and you're unemployed, you must naturally go and look for a job as well and then ask Allah to give you a job, and inshallah you'll find it. You can't ask for a job, sit there and expect Allah to, drop a contract at your doorstep. In the same way, when you say Assalamu alaikum to a fellow believer, you're asking Allah to envelop him with peace. You must now work to envelop that person with peace. You must now work to make sure that that person is not at harm in any way. How many times have you found some people, they'll say salam to you in front of you and they'll backbite you behind their back? What sort of salam is this? What sort of greeting of peace was this? Salam was meant to increase those ties of brotherhood such that we can become bonded to each other and we make an oath with each other. That if anything happens to you, I'll protect you. If anything happens to me, you should also protect me. That is why we were meant to say salam to each other. That's why in the Quran it's placed such an emphasis that Surah 4 verse 86 says, if you are ever given a greeting, then return that greeting with a greater greeting, or at least return it with the same one that's given to you. Because they wanted that ties of brotherhood to be strong. They didn't want that one person says a beautiful greeting to you and you reply back less. They wanted you to have that equality between each other, that sense of brotherhood between each other. If you go to the narrations, there's actually another interpretation of this verse as well. There's a narration that's narrated in the Sacred Effusion. Shaykh Muhammad Khalfan uses it. There's a narration that Imam al-Hasan, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh, once it's narrated that a slave of his, a female slave of his, came to him and gave him a bouquet of flowers. So Imam al-Hasan said, you are now free. So one of his companions came afterwards and said, Imam al-Hasan, she just gave you a bouquet of flowers, why did you free her? He said, have you not read the verse, Surah 4 verse 86, إِذَا حُيِّيتُمْ بِتَحِيَّةٍ فَحِيَّوْا بِأَحْسَنَ مِنْهَا, that when you are greeting with a greeting, then greet back with a greater greeting, or at least return the greeting. He says greeting here does not only refer to the greeting of Assalamu alaikum, it refers to acts of virtue. So if somebody does something nice to you, you must return it with something even better than that. We in our community sometimes are very good at taking, and not very good at giving. If the center, for example, provides you with a space for azadari, you can give them back. If somebody does something nice for you, you can return it back with something greater. This verse was not only limited to greetings, rather it was extended towards acts of virtue for each other. And with this we find that our Ahlul Bayt were trying to increase those ties of brotherhood and unity. And how many times did you find within Islamic history where this unity was not there? At the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, where people would be scattered into different sects. Imam al-Hussein only had 72 people with him united. Imam al-Mahdi is waiting for an army which is united with each other. They don't fight each other over petty things. They don't start grudges over small things. They may have slight differences, but this only contributes to them being closer to each other through debate and discussion. They're constantly intellectually stimulated. But on the highest level, they are united in the obedience of their Imam. This was the most important thing. The Imam, how many people is he waiting for? According to narrations, 313 commanders and about 10,000 foot soldiers. We've got so many more people than that in this world. How many people go to Karbala on Arba'een every year? There's records smashed every year. We have enough people. We don't have the quality within that people. Our unity is not there. We don't think about the ummah on a daily basis. What did our Imam say? He who wakes up and does not care about the umur al-Muslimin, the affairs of the Muslims, he is not from among us. We lack this unity, we lack this social dimension of wilayah, such that if somebody is at peace with our Imam or he believes in our Imam, we don't give him that respect. We don't have that strong form of respect. It's something that we need to work on. I'm not saying we don't have it all together, but it's something we need to work on. And therefore, when you say Assalamu alayka, Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin within your salat, this is like an oath that you're saying now. You're saying, may peace envelop us and all of the believers around the world. And this should strike home with you after your salah. That maybe let me go and check the news and see what's happening with the Shias around the world. Let me go and check the news and see if somebody is okay. There are narrations that Rasulullah with his friends, if he had not seen one of his companions for about 3 days, he'd go and check up on them and see if they were okay. That's how much he used to show love for his brothers in faith. That he used to go and check up on them. How many times have we even maintained our family ties in the same manner? How many cousins do we have that we haven't talked to for years? It's something that we need to increase and work upon, inshallah, so that we can allow this social dimension of wilayah to take over our life. The last salam that we do, it's the first salam, I kind of went in reverse order. The first salam that we do at the end of our salah is Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And this is the salam that we often find within our ziyarat. That often we say Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah at the start of ziyarat Ashura. What was the philosophy of this salam? Was it similar to the first ones or is it slightly different? Well, of course, we know that it can have many interpretations. And of course, on the face of it, you do find our Imam say that you're meant to try and increase that relationship with Abu Abdullah. And therefore, on the first level, it can just be that greeting of salam to your Imam, so that you're greeting your Imam. You're acknowledging your Imam within your life, and therefore you're increasing your relationship with him and your ties of bonds with him. And if we look at the philosophy of ziyarah, we might get a clearer answer of what salam is meant to be. If you look at the word ziyarah, according to our scholars, it comes from the root word zawr, which means to deflect or to move away. Now, when I say ziyarah to you, the first thing that comes to your head is either visiting Karbala or visiting one of the shrines or talking to one of your imams. So how comes the root word means to move away or to deflect? Our ulama say this is because when you do ziyarah, you're meant to move away or deflect from everything else and concentrate on only your imam. How many times when we talk to Abu Abdullah, is he the only one in our minds? When we recite Ziyarat Ashura and we want to become united with the Imam, we have to make sure that we're moving away from everything else and concentrating on our Imam. And when the Salam has this purity and this sincerity, you'll find that this Salam has a new level to it. Such that according to our narrations, the Imam hears your Salam and he replies to your Salam as well. In Uswatul Arifin, there's an interesting story narrated by Ayatollah Bahjat rahmatullah alayh, who died only recently. He narrates that a group of youth once went to Mashhad to visit the Imam al-Rida. And they came back and they saw this farmer who was farming, and he was holding quite a lot of hay on his back. He was doing a lot of work. So they said to him, you're working quite hard for this world. Why don't you go on ziyarah to Mashhad? We just went, it was amazing. He said to them, you went on ziyarah to Mashhad, but did you achieve anything? Did the Imam answer your salam? He said, what do you mean? How is that dead Imam meant to answer my salam? He said, no, if you had sincerity, how can you say that the Imam's dead? When the Quran says, surely those who die in the way of Allah, don't call them dead, nay, they are alive. If you had sincerity, if you were to say salam, the Imam would answer your salam. This old man then turned towards Mashhad and said, Assalamu alayka ya Imam Dhamin. And he heard a reply, wa alayka salam. And these youth all realized they had no sincerity in that ziyarah that they done. While this old man who was farming, he has sincerity in his salam from far distance. So that far distance was eclipsed. You know, Imam al-Baqir beautifully says that the distance between the heavens and the earth is dua. Because dua is a conversation with Allah. Our ulama have said dua is the conversation with Allah. Ziyarah is the conversation with your Imam. Therefore, if you're unable to go to Karbala, The distance between you and Karbala can be eclipsed by that one line, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. If only you have sincerity in that line. Furthermore, if ziyarah is moving towards our Imam and trying to become united with our Imam, it means that Salam also has the meaning of taslim. Taslim meaning submission. We are now submitting to our Imam and we're saying that we want to become more like you. When you say Salamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah and you go and commit a sin, are you at peace with Aba Abdullah? When you say Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah and you go and do something that one of his enemies would have done, are you now at peace with Aba Abdullah? When you say Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, or you say Salam to any of your A'imma, this is meant to be an invocation. This is meant to be a pledge of allegiance towards them, that you are now going to obey them better within your lives. Yes, how many times do we recite that ziyarah and yet it has no effect on our lives? When we say Salam to the Ahlul Bayt, we are making a pledge of allegiance to them that we want to become more like them within our lives. We want to submit to them, obey them in everything that we do. That's why beautifully within Ziyarat Ashura we say, Allahumma ja'al mahyaya mahya Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, wa mamati mamata Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Oh Allah, make my life the life of Muhammad and al-Muhammad, and make my death like the death of Muhammad and al-Muhammad. Because the whole point of this ziyarah was to change your character. Within Ziyarat Ashura, we also say quite beautifully, we say something that's quite interesting. We say, فَأَسْأَلَ اللَّهَ الَّذِي أَكْرَمَنِي بِمَعْرِفَتِكُمْ وَمَعْرِفَةِ أَوْلِيَاءِكُمْ. We say, so I ask Allah who has honored me with your ma'rifah and the ma'rifah of your friends, of your companions and your close friends. Now, whenever you recite a dua or a ziyarat of the Ahlul Bayt, many a times you find you're learning from them what kind of level you're meant to be at. For example, in Dua at-Tawbah, Dua number 31 of Sahifat al-Sajjadiyah, Imam Zainul Abidin says, Allahumma arham wajiba qalbi min khashyatik. Oh Allah, have mercy on the palpitations of my heart out of your fear. The last time I recited that, the first thing that came into my mind is, when's the last time my heart palpitated out of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Meaning now, I now realize that my Imam is telling me that I should be on a level whereby when I think of Allah, my heart should palpitate. Such that the Quran says, when those who believe, they remember Allah, تُلِيَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُ زَادَتْهُمْ إِيمَانًا, that their iman is increased. And تَقْشَعِرُ مِنْهُ جُلُودُ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُم, the hairs on their skin start to stand up out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we recite this dua, we understand this. In Ziyarat Ashura, we say, فَأَسْأَلَ اللَّهَ الَّذِي أَكْرَمَنِي بِمَعْرِفَتِكُمْ وَمَعْرِفَةِ أَوْلِيَاءِكُمْ. So I ask Allah who has honored me with your ma'rifah and the ma'rifah of your companions. The first thing we should be thinking is, do we really have the ma'rifah of the Imam and his companions? How much do we truly understand them? A beautiful thing we say within Ziyarat Ashura is, Ya Aba Abdullah, inni ataqarrabu ila Allahi wa ila Rasulihi wa ila Amir al-Mu'minin wa ila Fatima wa ila al-Hasan wa ilayka bimuwalatika. O Aba Abdullah, I seek nearness to you, and I seek nearness to Rasulullah, to Amir al-Mu'minin, to Fatima al-Zahra, to al-Hasan and to al-Husayn, alayhim as-salatu was-salam, salawat ala Muhammad wa alihi. That we seek nearness to them, that we want to get to ma'rifah of them. Yet how many times as this ziyarah have we recited it, and has it got us to go and try to look at their lives and try to understand them more? The word ma'rifah is one that's often misunderstood. Many people ask, what does that actually mean? You know, we have ilm, knowledge, and we have ma'rifah, which is something deeper. Some people translate it as inner knowledge. Some people translate it as recognition. I'll explain it to you like this. You can have ilm of your imam, meaning you know about him. You know what he done within his life. You know when he died, when he was born. You know basically about the history of his life. Ma'rifah is more about understanding the personality of the imam and why he did certain things. Such that you could put your feet in the feet of the imam. Of course, you can never do this truly. But you could kind of put your feet in the feet of the imam and understand what he's going to do. And with that, whenever you go to do anything within your life, you could think, what would the imam do in this circumstance? That's what we want. We want that recognition whereby we can understand why Amir al-Mu'mineen would do certain things. Why is it that when he was spat at in the Battle of Khaybar, he stood and then he went back and struck him? He didn't strike him straight away. Why is it that he made certain decisions in his life not to fight out? Why? These are important things that we need to understand. Because when you get that ma'rifah, It's important because we have that famous hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, where he says, he who dies and does not have ma'rifah of the Imam of his time, dies the death of Jahiliyyah. He who dies and does not recognize the Imam of his time, he does not have ma'rifah, inner knowledge of the Imam of his time, he will die the death of Jahiliyyah. This means that we must increase, when we recite this ziyarah, it should remind us of this hadith. And we should immediately start to go and look into the lives of our Imams and try to understand them better. And not just their lives, but to get ma'rifah of them, you also have to have ma'rifah of the Qur'an. We often say that the Imams are the walking Qur'an, the living Qur'an, meaning all of their actions embodies the verses of the Holy Qur'an. How can you expect to have full ma'rifah of the Ahlul Bayt if you don't have full ma'rifah of the Qur'an then? This should increase us in looking at the tafsir of the Holy Qur'an, looking at the lives of the Ahlul Bayt, understanding why they did certain things. And with that, trying to understand how Imam al-Mahdi will be when he comes back as well. Because Imam al-Mahdi is from the same line. He's going to be doing the same, he's going to follow their sunnah. If we don't understand their lives and we don't understand the injunctions of the Holy Qur'an, how would we understand Imam al-Mahdi and what he will do when he comes back? Another thing that is a feature within this ziyarah is bara'ah or tabarra or la'na. And because of the la'na that's in it, many people, they question its authenticity and they say there's too much la'na in this, there's too much hatred. Tabarra is something that's a furu' ad-din, it's a branch of our religion. And it's quite basic that we need tabarra within our lives. Because at the end of the day, for example, if I was to tell you right now that somebody killed your mother, how would you look at that individual? Naturally, that individual would be an enemy to you. You're Ahlul Bayt, you're meant to have more love for them than your own parents and your own selves. In Surah 33 verse 6, what does it say? النَّبِيُّ أَوْلَى بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ. The Nabi has more authority over the believers than themselves. Therefore, if they have more authority over you than yourselves, and you're meant to love them more than yourselves and your parents, if somebody went against them, naturally we would want to dissociate from these people. But when we dissociate from these people, there's a philosophy behind doing it. It's not just that we're showing hatred for a certain group of people. It's not just that we're trying to dissociate from them and we're trying to create enmity with them. There's a philosophy behind it. When you send la'na on a person, and you can translate it how you want, as a curse or as Allah removing His mercy from him. When you send la'na on a person, that's meant to purify you. Let me tell you how la'na makes sense to me. When you go to Hajj, you do something called you stone the shaitans, you stone those pillars, yes? When you stone those pillars, why do you do it? First and foremost, when Ibrahim was going to sacrifice Ismail, shaitan came 3 times to try and stop him. So he stoned shaitan. And to mirror what he done there, we stone the shaitan today. And those pillars are meant to represent shaitan. But spiritually, you will tell me that when you stone that shaitan, you're meant to take those satanic habits from within you and stone those pillars. You're meant to take those satanic habits, strip them from you and throw them back at shaitan, so that you can stone the shaitan out of your life. That is the philosophy of it, yes? That you stone shaitan out of your life so that he doesn't hinder you anymore. Those satanic habits that were within you, you throw them away. And if you do not do this, then you will tell me that that stoning was empty. In the same way, when you do la'na, you're not just doing la'na on an individual. You're doing la'na on everything he stood for. Therefore, if, for example, Yazid had a filthy tongue, when you do la'na on Yazid, you're meant to take that filthy tongue from within you and throw it at Yazid. When you do la'na on Shimr, and you know that he used to do these bad actions, if those bad actions are within you, you're meant to take that bad action and throw it at Shimr. La'na for me is like stoning the shaitans of history. Because when you do that la'na, you're meant to take those bad actions that they used to embody and throw it back at them. And if you do not do that, then that la'na bounces back at you. You're doing la'na on yourself. Because if you're acting the same way they acted, then what's the difference between you and them? Why are you doing la'na on them if you act the same way they acted? Tabarra and la'na was important within our religion. It's found within the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt, it's found within Ziyarat Ashura for this reason. Because it's meant to purify you. And you're meant to think about their bad actions and you're meant to throw it out of your lives. And to increase in doing this, to make sure we can do this correctly, another thing we can do is to look at the lives of those who Allah makes us do la'na on in Ziyarat Ashura. Because when you study their lives, you understand what they did wrong. And you make sure you don't commit the same mistakes they made. And this is very important when you consider the people that we do la'na on. For example, we do la'na on Umar ibn Sa'ad. Umar ibn Sa'ad is the son of Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, who was the early companion of Rasulullah. What happened in that line that Umar ibn Sa'ad, who according to the narrations was a friend of Imam al-Hussein as a youngster, then turned against him as an elder? You do la'na on Shimr. How many of you know Shimr was fighting with Amir al-Mu'mineen in Siffin? What made him turn away? One example that frightens me is Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. He was fighting with Rasulullah at Badr. Do you know after Saqifa, when they came to take Amir al-Mu'mineen in chains outside of his house, there were a few companions trying to defend him. People like Salman al-Muhammadi, Abu Dharr al-Ghaffari, Zubayr ibn al-Awwam was defending Amir al-Mu'mineen outside of his house against the Khilafat. Yet when Amir al-Mu'mineen gained Khilafat himself, Zubayr was on the opposite side. What happened? When Allah made you do la'na on these individuals who died as kuffar, He wanted you to understand that you need to look into their lives, acknowledge what they did wrong and make sure you're not like them. Because they went against the Imam of your time. You want to make sure when the Imam of your time reappears, you're not going against him. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted us to do la'na and ziyarat Ashura, to make sure we always keep in mind those who were wrong, and to make sure we never be like them within our lives. That's why we find bara'a and la'na is something that's quite prominent within ziyarat Ashura. Tawalla and Tabarra are recurring themes within ziyarat Ashura. They're fairly balanced out, because as Rasulullah says, is religion anything but love and hate? Love for goodness, hate for wrong. Love for right, hate for wrong. Love for those who love Allah, hate for those who were enemies of Allah. This tabarra was important. And in fact in the Quran, Allah says something quite interesting. He says, the verse I recited at the start, Surah 33, verse 57, right after the verse of salawat, we say, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُعْذُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَنَهُمَ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Surely those who annoyed or angered Allah and His Apostle, Allah sends la'na on them in this dunya and in the akhirah. I find it quite beautiful that it's right after the verse of salawat Allah mentions that, to show us that alongside tawalla, tabarra is necessary, to make sure you know who's on the right path and you know who's on the wrong path. And that's why perhaps we find Sayyid Sistani, he released a little paper where he said, he recommends that if you want to do la'na, you do it after your salawat. So you say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum wal'an a'da'ahum. So that you make it clear that you are on the path of Ahlul Bayt and not on the path of their enemies. So, and in fact, in Ziyarat Ashura, you say something so interesting. You say, فَأَسْأَلَ اللَّهَ الَّذِي أَكْرَمَنِي بِمَعْرِفَتِكُمْ وَمَعْرِفَةَ أَوْلِيَاءِكُمْ وَرَزَقَنِي الْبَرَاءَةَ مِنْ أَعْدَائِكُمْ. And Allah razaqani, He gave me the rizq of bara'ah from His enemies. Rizq, we often think about wealth, we often think about money, family. If we think a bit deeper, we think about knowledge. Here we're saying Allah has given me the rizq of bara'ah from His enemies, showing that bara'ah is like a sustenance for your spiritual being. You needed that for your spiritual being. The final thing I'm going to go into just quickly is that we ask Allah to make us with Him in maqam al-mahmud. We say, فَأَسْأَلَ اللَّهَ الَّذِي أَكْرَمَنِي بِمَعْرِفَتِكُمْ وَمَعْرِفَةِ أَوْلِيَاءِكُمْ وَرَزَقَنِي الْبَرَاءَةَ مِنْ أَعْدَائِكُمْ أَن يَجْعَلَنِي مَعَكُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَأَن يُثَبِّتَ لِي عِندَكُمْ مَقَامَ صِدْقٍ فِي الدُّنْيا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَأَسْأَلُهُ أَن يُبَلِّغَنِي الْمَقَامَ الْمَحْمُودَ لَكُمْ عِندَ اللَّهِ. We ask you to make us at the maqam al-mahmud with you, with Allah. That station that you have with Allah. Now the maqam al-mahmud is one of the highest stations in Jannah. According to our narrations, and Ayatollah Ghaib Shirazi narrates that it's something that you can't necessarily describe. It's something that needs to be perceived. But he quotes a few narrations where he says it's at the highest level of Jannah with Rasulullah and the Ahlul Bayt, such that the Huris and the angels from Jannah come to you to give you glad tidings that you've got to such a position. And they try to take you towards Jannah, but you say, no, I don't want to go towards Jannah. I want to stay with the Ahlul Bayt. That is the maqam of Mahmud. Now here we find the maqam al-Mahmud is attained by ma'rifah of the Ahlul Bayt and their awliya, and bara'ah from their enemies. Within the Quran you find in Surah 17, Surah Bani Israel, verse 79, Allah says, وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَتَهَجِّدْ بِهِ نَافِلَةً لَكَ عَسَىٰ أَن يَبْعَثَكَ رَبُّكَ مَقَامًا مَحْمُودًا. And from the night, then stay up and recite the nafilah, the salatul layl. Maybe Allah would raise you to the station of maqam al-Mahmud. Why do these two things link in? Because when you have ma'rifah of the Ahlul Bayt and their companions, you will see their legacy is Salatul Layl. The apple of their eye was Salatul Layl. Think about it. Rasulullah used to pray so much that Allah revealed in Surah Muzammil, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, qum al-layla illa qalila. Stay awake in the nights, but a little, have some sleep. Because Rasulullah was praying all nights long. And I take you to one example in history just to remind you. And I often quote this example because it's so beautiful. In the night of Muharram, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was standing side against Shimr. Shimr called him out to talk to him. And Shimr said that we are related. Therefore, I will give you security if you want it. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, of course, says, I will never leave the Imam. I'll never leave my Mawla Hussein. So Umar ibn Sa'ad then comes to him and he says, fine, if that's the case, then go to your Mawla Hussein and tell him that either he gives us bay'ah today on the night of Muharram, or we are going to fight him today. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas goes back to Imam al-Hussein and he tells them what they've said. Imam al-Hussein says to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas something quite amazing. He says to him, go back to them and tell them to grant us one last night, so that therein we can recite Salah, we can recite Dua, and we can recite Qur'an. Tell me something. Had they died on the night of Muharram, what difference would it have made to their sacrifice? Would we have said it was only the 9th of Muharram, it's not called Ashura, it doesn't sound as good? Would we have said they were only thirsty for 2 days? It wasn't as great a sacrifice. Would their sacrifice have been any less? Were they not going to die as martyrs and go to attain a Jannah without any hisab? Did they need that last night of Salah, Qur'an and Dua? Did they not rush out for martyrdom on the 10th of Muharram? Why ask for one last night to recite Salah, recite Qur'an and recite Dua? Because their love for this action was so much. They wanted one last chance to taste the beauty of it before they passed away. There's a beauty in those actions that they understood, which we misunderstood. There's a beauty in their actions, which is why they left it as a legacy for us, but we've neglected it. There's a beauty in that Salatul Layl, which is why Bibi Zainab, Salam Allahi alayha, despite all of the tragedies she went through, on Sham Khariba, she sat down and recited Salatul Layl. Subhanallah. In our lives, we're so comfortable, yet we can't wake up to recite Salatul Layl. She went through so much, and on Sham Khariba, she was reciting Salatul Layl. The legacy they left behind for us. And what did she not go through before that period? The masa'ib of Sayyidah Zainab never ends. As a young woman, she saw the passing away of her grandfather, and 6 months later she lost her mother at such a young age. See, she saw the door close on her mother. She saw the miscarrying of Muhsin. She then lived throughout the period of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and she saw her father struck with the poisonous sword. She saw her father struggle for 3 days before dying of that poison. She saw her brother Al-Hassan deserted by his companions and his people. And she saw him vomit out his liver. You know what the tragedy is? When Imam Al-Hassan vomited out his liver, he said to Imam Al-Hussein, wait, hide my liver. I don't want Zainab to see this. As if to say she's going to go through so much more in her life. She blinks again and she's in the plains of Karbala. She sees that whole tragedy unfold on that day. She gives 2 sons on that day. She sees Aliyun al-Akbar martyred. She sees Abbas fall from that horse. She sees Shimr on the chest of Abu Abdullah. As if that wasn't enough, the people came and they started to burn the tents. They snatched her hijab. Shimr started to whip her. And yet she sat down and recited Salatul Layl. And as if that wasn't enough, the masa'ib of Sayyidah Zainab was never to end. On nights like these, nights like when they're dragging her with chains towards Sham. On nights like this, she sees Sakina crying. On nights like this, she's chained up really tight. And the musibah wasn't to end. When Imam Zainul Abidin was asked what was the most difficult part of your journey, he replied by saying, Asham, Asham, Asham. The masa'ib of this lady is too great. Imam al-Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah al-sharif in Ziyarat Nahiya, he says, فَلَأَنْدُبَنَّكَ صَبَاحًا وَمَسَاعًا وَلَأَبْكِيَنَّ لَكَ بَدَلَ الدُّمُوعِ دَمًا. I will cry for you morning and evening. And I will cry tears of blood for you. When he was asked, who are you crying tears of blood for? He said, I'm crying for my auntie Zainab, Salam Allahi alayha. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون. If you could recite a Surah Al-Mubarakah Al-Fatiha, but before it, a lot of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.